Now we can get back to citizens to be heard, and we will start with Sandra Stepanek, and then followed by Sharon Calvert, and then Robert Mueller.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Sandra.
I would like to thank the BOCC for allowing me to speak today. In this crazy world we live in, we still have the opportunity to speak our voice and be heard. And not only be heard, but our government welcomes our opinion. We do live in the greatest nation in the world.
Thank you. I agree.
And thank you for allowing me to speak. And I respectfully ask you consider the following points. I live at the Yacht Haven condo complex on the Tierra Verde Grand Canal. The canal is filling in at a rapid pace. The difference in just a year is very astounding. We may be one storm away from it filling in completely. There is a sense of urgency that action be taken soon, dredging to keep the canal open and to ensure it remains safe to pass. I want to raise concerns regarding a timeline of the next steps I recently saw in the Tierra Verde Community Association newsletter. I believe the timeline is unacceptable considering how quickly the sand is filling in the canal. If quiet title is being taken to dry sand beaches, and I understand that is occurring, that could endanger or make it more difficult for any fix to keep the canal open. In addition, the canal is not a private canal. I live across from the marina, and most boats using the canal every day are not residents who live on the canal. From the marina itself to the island ferry shuttling tourists to the fishing charters, boat rentals, boat brokers, to the fuel dock, to the island grill residents in and the ice cream boat, it is obviously being used for commercial purposes. The past few days, a boat film crew has been using our canal as they filmed a fishing show. I do not know who, when, or why the county designated the Grand Canal private, but it is not truly private. The designation needs to properly reflect the canal's usage. Not sure if that is recreational or commercial. Therefore, I am concerned about the county's proposal to assess the residents who live on the canal, since half or more of the boat traffic is not from the canal residents. I live in a moderately valued 16 unit that happens to have a corner lot at the north end. We have the largest seawall on the canal, 450 feet, and any assessment based on the seawall footage is very, very concerning. In addition, proposing to only access canal residents is neither fair nor equitable. Sales taxes, tourist taxes.
Yeah, just a sentence or two, please. Just a sentence more or two, if you have it, because we really have a lot of people.
Yes, sales tax, tourist tax, gas tax is being collected for commercial use on the canal, and I request that you consider other sources of funding, such as these, rather than assessing the residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandra. Okay, Sharon Calvert, Robert Mueller, and then Karen Wise.
Good afternoon. I'm Sharon Calvert, and I also live in Tierra Verde and here to speak on the Grand Canal issue. I also live on the north end of the canal in the 16-unit condo that is the corner lot with one of the largest seawall. I do want to thank Kelly Levy for the time I spent on the phone with her and her getting back to me about how corner lots can be dealt with regarding any assessment. But I asked the county to bring a sense of urgency to the sand issue. Dredging is needed as soon as possible to keep the canal safe for passage and stop the quiet tidal that's occurring with the dry sand. We cannot wait another 12 months or more, and that's unacceptable. COVID did not delay sand from filling in. And as I told Kelly, the sand may be moving down the canal. From a meeting last March, dredging has to be done, and I was understood that the permits were going to be pursued back at that time, but I'm very concerned about the status of all the permits because any delay is concerning. The Grand Canal is an important recreational resource in Pinellas. I don't believe you want it to close or become dangerous to navigate. And again, living across from the marina, I see the boat traffic every day, and the majority of the traffic is from commercial businesses, not from those who live on the canal. Again, sales tax, gas taxes, tourist taxes are all being generated every day by those businesses. And the state of Florida owns the bottom of the canal, and residents pay submerged land leases to the state. But somehow the state is not obligated to keep the canal navigable. That doesn't make sense to me. Where do those funds go? You know, as a Tierra Verde residents paying a submerged land lease, are we paying for somebody else's channel to keep open? And to my knowledge, owners of property on the beaches are not specifically assessed for beach renourishment projects. So how is dredging the sand, and hopefully that some of that sand can be reused for beach renourishment, different? I asked the county to consider other funding sources, as I do believe it's unfair and inequitable for the county to only assess property owners on the canal. I'm told the canal was dredged decades ago by a private developer, but most people really don't know the history to that. And it's kind of difficult to swallow if we're told public money could not be used to keep the Pinellas County recreational resource open when we see public funds being used for other things, incentives, subsidies for private projects, development, etc. Again, where do the state submerged land lease fees go? Is there other state money available? I asked the county to please think outside the box for how this project may be funded fairly, and make sure we have a plan A, B, C, and please bring a sense of urgency to move up the timeline for dredging, because that cannot wait, or all of the Tierra Verde property values will be negatively impacted. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Board of County Commissioners, for having me. And I
introduce
I'm sorry.
please.
Thank you. So what we're talking about, and I did not get to hear all of the last person, but we're talking about.
Robert, I need you to introduce yourself. And
Oh,
your
I'm sorry.
address.
Sorry about that. I just walked in the door and I got my name called, so I apologize. Robert Mueller. I live at 936 Pinellas Bayway. I am a homeowner out there, and then I'm also one of the commercial businesses that are in the Tierra Verde Marina resort area, the Island Grill and Raw Bar. So I'm coming from both parts. But so what we're talking about here is the entryway to the Grand Canal, and the entryway cannot be more than 50 to 100 yards wide. That's where the sand that's where the sand is migrating to, and then when you get into the canal, it's 3/4 of a mile up to where all the commercial businesses are. There's a Marriott hotel, marina, has 400 plus boaters. You've got all your captains and dolphin boats out there and what have you. So the question is, this waterway has been open for hundreds of years. It has always been flushed through. So where's the sand actually coming from? And when you really think about it, and I've been here for quite a few years, but the beaches have been replenished, which is it's a great purpose, and they should be. But that sand does migrate south, and it's all landing, not all of it, but it's landing up in our little area there. So that entryway has to be kept open. But the beaches from Sand Key to Bel Air, all the way down, get refurbished, and that's a good cause. But why should we have to pay for that? So the other thought I had, or question, and it's my understanding that Pinellas County has indicated they're going to indicate that they intend to recommend to the board here that the method of assessment will be based on the property owner's linear footage of seawall. And again, I'm a homeowner out there at the very end of the canal there, but I don't even own a boat. So, but what I do see on my balcony at most nights, there are hundreds of boats going by. There are the boat captains going by. There are the commercial fishing people going by. There's the dolphin watch going by. There's a couple 100-foot plus dining cruises that come in, and they're going up and down that canal. This canal is a commercial waterway. There are, in my understanding, I haven't counted, but I'm looking at a letter here. There's 9 commercial businesses that operate in that canal, and they're primarily all for commercial.
I'm going to give you 15 more seconds because I stopped you. Go ahead. Keep going.
All right. As a commercial owner and the other commercial owners, we pay millions of dollars to St. Pete. Their annexation of that's a whole nother topic. But St. Pete has no skin in this game at all, and they should. Pinellas County, the sand is, I believe, coming down because of Pinellas County. I believe I believe St. Pete should have some, and the lady was talking about submerged. The state, a lot of those funds are submerged.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's going to have to.
I haven't even got into Fort DeSoto, which is a commercial road.
Yeah.
Millions of people go down there every day.
We'll have some other opportunities, but thank you.
And so do those boats on those back of those cars. Thank you. I'm sorry. I respectfully wish you to think about this and not just tack on to the homeowners of the waterway. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I think Karen Wise. Yes, please. And then Brad O'Brien, and then Tommy Holmes. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for your time. My name is Karen Wise. I've lived on the island. I live at 361 6th Avenue North.
Pull that down so we can hear you.
I'm sorry?
No, just pull it down so we can hear you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I live at 361 6th Avenue North. I'm about 5 houses down from the Madonna Bridge on the small canal that feeds into the Grand Canal. I echo what my previous speakers have talked about relative to commercial use. I tell you that, though, because I wanted to put a face with your perceptions of Tierra Verde. As I said, I've lived there 23 years. I'm 71 years old. I'm here on behalf of myself and my neighbor, who's 89-year-old widow. To only assess those of us with an arbitrary mark in the sand, if you will, of Madonna seems very unfair, especially given all of the commercial use that is happening on that canal down there right now. For example, the marina alone has 470 slips. 150 of them are wet slips. The boats that are in those slips have to be 35 feet or larger, and they charge a minimum. This is a minimum of $16.50. Annual revenues are exceeding $50 million. You know, it doesn't come, you all have a great responsibility. Florida is growing unbelievably. You know it, I know it. Unbridled growth is not good. And it's up to you to make sure that your long-term residents are represented and, you know, their interests are held. I found this morning's discussion very interesting. That issue dealt with density, bottom line. Tierra Verde is quickly becoming the island that is the plague of high density. Our traffic is increased on our roads. Our traffic has increased in our waterways. And now you want to hold a handful of residents responsible for paying to dredge a canal that is one of the few deep water access points in all of Pinellas County. That will have an impact not only on the people that are adjacent to the waterways, it will have an impact on all property values in Tierra Verde. And your tax base will also be affected by that. That's really all I had to say. I'll be glad to take any questions if you have it. This is an issue, obviously, that is very near and dear to my heart. I've never come before you before, but as a long-term resident, I hate to see what's happening to the islands in Tierra Verde in your backyard.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate it. Okay. Brad O'Brien. and then Tommy Holmes, and then Eddie. That's all I have is Eddie for this third person. Welcome.
Good morning. I'm Brad O'Brien, the General Manager of Port 32 Tierra Verde, the marina Karen was just referring to. A lot of these guys have already touched on some stuff that I was gonna mention. So, main thing: 90% of our customers, not customers, the people that are coming in and out of that canal, are not residents. Tourists, in-trans boaters, restaurant visitors, hotel visitors, fishermen, they're all using it. And I agree with everybody that has spoke before me. I personally think the taxes that everybody has been mentioning, submerged land lease, all of these things are kind of making us wonder where that money is going. Sense of urgency has already been discussed. I used to have 7-foot vessels or 7-foot giraffes in the north corner of the basin, no problem. Now I have boats that are 2.5 to 3 feet in draft, touching at low tide. So sense of urgency is imperative, and it really does need to be addressed. I don't want to keep saying the same things, but these guys are 100% accurate in what they're saying, and something has to be done about this. Otherwise, it's going to affect all of Pinellas County, not just the residents, hundreds of jobs, 12 local businesses. Bobby mentioned 9, but I think there's even more than that. So please look at this, and if there's anything we can do to expedite the process, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is this Brad? I'm sorry. That was Brad. Sorry, I'm just getting a little confused here. Tommy. Come on up, Tommy.
Thank you for your time today, Commissioners. I'm Tommy Holmes, 340 Pinellas Bay, Unit 301 in Tierra Verde, also Yacht Haven condominiums. I would just like to say that my fellow citizens have already said a lot in regards to this topic about the dredging. I echo everything that they have already said, but I do want to state that I am opposed to the assessment falling on the shoulders of the homeowners for the dredging of the canal. I say this as I feel there's a potential imbalance on how the assessment will be calculated and applied to the homeowners along the canal, either by property value or by total seawall frontage. I believe the canal is not a private canal, as has already been stated, and placing the majority of the burden on the homeowners to pay the assessment appears to be grossly unfair. Classification of the canal should be commercial or recreational and not private, based on the amount of recreational boaters and commercial boat companies using the marina, as well as the presence of a restaurant and hotel located at the end of the canal in the marina itself. I'd also like to echo or mention, as the other citizens have, that regarding the dredging itself, that timeline really needs to commence sooner than later, as the canal is filling up quickly, and that is going to impair the use not only on a recreational basis, but also cause unsafe navigation as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Tommy. Okay, Eddie, and then Sheila Nagley, and then David Ballard Geddes Jr. Eddie, Sheila Nagley, David Ballard Geddes Jr. Sheila?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, my name is Sheila Nagley, and I also live in Yacht Haven, right across from the marina. And I'm a widow on a fixed income, and I don't own a boat. So if residents are assessed, it's going to be a hardship for me. And I'm sure there's many others on fixed incomes as well. The timeline for dredging now is fall of next year, and as we talked about, the filling in has changed dramatically even in the last month without going through our current upcoming storm season. So I'm very concerned about that. And I've seen several sailboats bump ground right in front of the fuel dock area, which is right in front of our complex, and that never happens. So it's filling in all the way at the end of the canal, not just, I mean, the north end, not just where you come in, which is where that's the part that's really concerning because of closing it off, but it's still up in the north end as well. So what can we do to make dredging happen sooner than that plan? And earlier, somebody mentioned quiet title. That's very concerning because that can make it private property and make it even more difficult to dredge. So the main concern to me is that it's not a private canal, and apparently that designation is limiting the sources of funding that we have. So perhaps changing that to recreational or commercial, because who made it a private canal and why? Because that seems to be the solution to finding some other sources of funding. I don't think it's fair that the property owners on the canal have to pay for the dredging. Do beach owners have to pay for renourishment? Property owners on the beach, that is? If so, how's that calculated and how's it administered? And the sand that's filling in the canal is from renourishment. So should the people that did the renourishment have to pay for the damage like people have to do when water from their property goes on to other people's property? For years, Yacht Haven and other condominium complexes with boat slips have paid submerged land lease fees to the Department of Environmental Protection. Where is that money going? What do they use that for? And all the tax dollars that are being collected from the commercial properties, it just doesn't seem right to me that St. Petersburg gets all that benefit and doesn't have to do anything to maintain it. Tierra Verde has been a donor community to the county, and now we are in need of your help. I ask you to please get the Grand Canal dredged as soon as possible and find other sources of funding to pay for it instead of placing the burden on the residents who live along the canal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Philip Bergquist. Mr. Bergquist, and I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. Would you please raise your hand in the Zoom application or press *9 so that we can unmute you to speak? Once you're unmuted, please state and spell your name and state your address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Philip, you may need to unmute. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Philip Bergquist. That's Bergquist. I live at 499 Laguna Drive in Tierra Verde. Good afternoon, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon about the dredging of the Grand Canal. And forgive me if I repeat some of which you've maybe already heard from previous speakers. I'm part of a group of about 50 owners on the canal that I think are 100% supportive of dredging the Grand Canal. I think they want to see a timely and permanent solution. And while many residents don't feel they should pay anything, I believe that many would be supportive of a fair and balanced funding solution. But at the moment, it seems that the bulk of the costs will be borne by the individual residents owning property on the canal. So it seems incumbent on the county to clearly explain what funding sources were explored and rejected and why this project, from a funding perspective, is significantly different from beach replenishments. It also seems important to explain how balance is being achieved. Is it value or usage or a little bit of both? We understand that the county is leaning toward an assessment based on linear seawall feet, which would suggest that the marina would pay about 9% of the total cost. But a linear foot metric is not reflective of boat size, usage, or relative value of the underlying properties. Now, what we see, based on actual numbers and usage, is that both are mostly heavily skewed toward the commercial side, as has been previously mentioned. The marina harbors about twice as many boats, about 510, as all the residents in the canal combined, and the vast majority of which need the southern pass to ingress and egress. As for usage, on any given day, about 75% of the boats using the canal, I think was mentioned maybe 90% earlier, are commercial or probably derived not from residents, but from the marina or from people coming into the canal for gas, food, or lodging. For example, having done some measurements, we count about 50 residents might take their boats out on a daily basis on a given day. There's about 10 fishing charters. There's about 10 Freedom Boat users. There's about 50 ferries that go every day. There's about 40 dry dock boats that are placed into the water. And there's about 30 wet slips that probably actually sail. So a private use is about 25% each day based on usage alone. And yes, while our property values reflect the fact that we live on the canal, many people's property values would be affected by a closure of the Grand Canal. If the residents, for example, suffered a 10% decline in value, the county's property tax receipts could see a $500,000 drop each year. I suspect the marina's $9 million assessed value would likely be dramatically impacted, as would the Island Grill's $2 million assessed value, and the hotel's $15 million assessed value. The state of Florida could annually lose almost $200,000 in sales tax revenue from boat slip rentals alone. The county gets about $30,000 of sales tax revenue and about $250,000 from the hotel tourist development tax. So I suspect both those also could be affected. So a lot of people have a stake in the Grand Canal, which is why I think we're looking for, from you, a fair and balanced solution.
Thank you, Philip.
Thank you for your attention.
Appreciate it. Yeah, Barry, just real quickly, I know there's some folks still here. We're planning a workshop to further discuss this item in July.
That's correct.
Okay.
Let me pull this
Just
up.
make sure we got the right date.
Yeah, so, you know, and I know the residents are concerned about the Grand Canal filling up. So are we, because if it does fill up, we've been told it'd be impossible to get it, you know, back open. We discussed that at a couple of meetings that we had down there, a year and a half ago. The idea is that we are ready to go. That's the reason we're going to be briefing you, to be able to submit the permitting applications. It is not a quick process, and it has taken us this year to get ready to be able to go into that permitting process. So pending the discussion with you at the workshop, we'd be prepared to submit to the state. We're going to have virtual community meetings in August or September, and so then we have a timeline to be able to get the state permit finalized by the end of this year.
Okay.
So we do have a timeline. That's what they were referring to. Unfortunately, we don't control that permitting process. We have to submit for that.
Okay. And so we will be having virtual meetings to get additional input from the residents?
Yes, we will.
Okay. And somebody had called me and asked if at our workshop they could speak, and I said, well, if I'm smart enough, I'll figure out a way to do it, but I didn't want to go too much longer than 15 minutes, and so short of drawing short straws or long straws for speaking, I think what we'll do is just make the workshop for the commission to discuss the staff's position and the staff discussion, and then we'll have our discussion as well. We'll have another commission meeting in 2 weeks, which we can hear additional input. I would just ask that we get the verbatim comments that were made today delivered to us for our July 8th meeting, so that we can just summarize. I think there's a good summary here of the issues that are concerns that have been raised. But we'll have another meeting before that meeting, and then we'll have another meeting in July, a commission meeting that you can also speak at these kind of sessions. We'll have a couple more in August for sure. So,
and understand, before you would ever adopt a resolution to impose any assessment method, there will be public hearings and public comment at that time.
yeah.
So.
Yeah, at the end of all of that,
Correct.
Before we vote on anything here at a meeting, we would have that public comment as well. So I think there'll be plenty of opportunities, but I just wanted to get back to the specific request on speaking at our workshop. I think we have some work to do ourselves, and so I'm going to just keep it that way at our meeting on July 8th. Okay. Yes, Commissioner Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I was going to ignore this, but I'm just having a hard time doing that. I would just like to caution our folks that come and speak to our commission on the citizens to be heard. And if you were new today, I'm not talking to you. But words matter, and words that you use matter. And I just really want to caution you. Several of us were at the Florida Holocaust Museum the other night talking with folks there who've been really impacted by a Holocaust. And to see that word used casually to me is inappropriate and offensive, and I just wanted to make that point.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Law?
Yes, as to the point about the Grand Canal, Barry, I agree with what Commissioner Justice says, but that's not the first time we've had outrageous things said this past year, and it just kind of is where we are in the world today. But back to the Grand Canal issue. You know, I clearly understand the permitting issues and the time and how long it takes to get any of this stuff done. We're dealing with the same kind of delay on the Johns Pass issue, for example. But, you know, Mother Nature isn't waiting for us in our permitting process, and it's not waiting for all the regulatory people that have to weigh in when we start talking about this kind of stuff. And I can remember having this discussion about the Grand Canal 4 or 5 years ago. And here we are, and we're still talking about it. So, I mean, at some point, I guess I would like to see us do something besides just, you know, chit-chat.
Well, I mean, a key piece, but a key piece to this is funding. And if we want to fund every channel that fills in, well, you know the financial impact of that. And so we first had to study about where the sand was coming from. And we're going to get in this at the workshop. And we did a very in-depth study that looked at the sand migration patterns and what is actually causing that impact. And so I don't think we have time to go into that type of detail now, but there's been a lot of work on staff side to try to define, is it coming from the beach nourishment or is it naturally occurring? And so that was one of the key issues that we started out with trying to define before we moved to assess what options we have for trying to address the problem.
So may I do a follow-up? And with all due respect to everything that you just said and the very hard work of our staff and the folks at USF who have been doing studies on several of our projects of the same ilk revolving around our waterways, I hope that my comments are not lost in, I think we might be missing something here, because this board is supposed to be about establishing public policy. And I promise you, with the environment that we have and the waterways surrounding Pinellas County, this is not the only 2 canals we're going to be talking about over the next however long, you know, that Mother Nature and the oceans and the waves decide to keep on moving. And let's also keep in mind we are entering our biggest storm season of the year right now. So having a higher level discussion where we don't get into the weeds on individual pieces, but more talk about where we are as a county surrounded on 3 sides by water, I think is very important. Okay, I said my piece, I'm done.
Yeah, I think probably all of us, including staff, agree with that. And I do think I think there was a comment made about thinking outside the box, and I think we just got to keep pushing the envelope in terms of getting feedback and getting this permit, as you say, when we get to that point, submitting the permit and putting as much pressures as we can, because we've been doing that on other areas, whether it's beach renourishment or whether it's other areas. So just whatever we can to accelerate the process so that we keep it in our control. The other piece of this is going to be the funding, as you said, and we're going to have to decide maybe the system, the process that we're looking at right now isn't the fairest and most balanced. I don't know. We'll have to get into that and look at that, because I do think there was a lot of good comments made about tourism making a big part of it, and they enjoy the use of that canal, and we've always said people that are tourists that enjoy the use of the canal, infrastructure-related issues, those are looked at in a different way. So I just think we have to keep an open mind to how we look at that. But I look forward to that conversation on July 8th. And folks, you know, again, please tune in to that conversation and additional ones where we'll have some virtual abilities to plug in as well. And like the administrator said, before we ever come to a decision, we'd have an open hearing, open mic, so that we'll hear from you before we make any decision here at a meeting. So, okay. Anything else before I move on? All right, we have the consent agenda.